Now, everything should be good and running. Or so I hope. Are we recording? We are recording. Hooray. Hooray for me. So, welcome along to a reaction to Frieren Season 2, Episode number 4. If you've not been along to one of these reactions before, go back and watch episode 1 first, I think. Unless maybe this is the big hype episode. Maybe this is the episode where it happens, whatever it is. And you all just want to see my reaction to that. But if this is so, then there's a little thing you should know. I don't put anime footage on screen if I can at all help it, because down that way lies copyright hell, and I don't want to go there. I don't have my season pass until next year. So, instead, I am going to show you, well, mostly nothing. Except there will be a little box with subtitles, and there's a little thing with a timestamp up in the top left corner, which is supposed to help you stay in sync with where I am, because you need to have your own copy of the anime open on your own screen. And I'm going to give you a countdown, 3, 2, 1, go, and then we go at the same time. And then when I need to stop and yap about something, which is going to happen occasionally, I'll say 3, 2, 1, pause, then we'll pause together, and don't worry, even if I start scrolling around in various bits and places, I will still go and find my place, so you just stay paused where you are, and then when I'm ready to continue, I'll say 3, 2, 1, go, and we will continue from exactly where we were. You got it? Is that very complicated and inconvenient for you? Yes, it is, but it's convenient for me, and that's what matters. If you want a more convenient version of the episodes to watch, you can become a member of the channel, and then you over on the Discord, there's a more convenient way to watch it. Or you can join the fine folks, well, the folks anyway, up in chat right here, who are watching this thing happen live, who are also having a much more convenient time. But you don't have to. It's completely fine if you don't. Please don't worry about it. Anyway, let's watch some frieren, shall we? 3, 2, 1, go. I will say that little lilt, la, like that little lilt up and down, that's a good move. I like it. Still need to go and try and find a uncompressed proper version of that song, because I want to hear that orchestral rise in a good quality rather than compressed for an anime episode. Oh, she's Russian. That's the thing about frieren. So much of the time, it's just such a cozy anime. It's such a chill, nice time. And then, like, that 10% of the time when they turn shit on, ooh. Does Stark even have another outfit? say that she looks nice, you moron! No! No! Oh my god! Hey, why aren't you wearing the same clothes you usually do? Oh my god. I mean, it's fine. He doesn't know, right? Stark has no idea. He doesn't know. That's what... Good boy. But it's just, oh, this man needs an older brother or something. Oh, wait, hang on. Oh, fuck, that's cool. Okay, 3, 2, 1, pause. That is very, very cool. Oh, I like that. That is very cool. So... Okay, so the thing that happens, right? He experiences an emotional shift, right? At first, Stark has no fucking idea what's going on because he's a dipshit. He's a moron, right? Like, you asked her out on a date, you idiot. Of course she's gonna look nice. Why aren't you looking nicer, frankly? But then he has this mental shift, right? Like, he sees this other couple. And by the way, lovely little interaction between the two of them. I like the body language here between them. Like, you can see the way that they're flirting with each other, right? It's the little thing like she's leaning away because she's carrying this hamper, but her head inclines towards him and he is leaning in towards her. Like, you can see that there's like a sense of intimacy there. Anyway, he sees Fern and how goddamn pretty she looks, you dipshit. And then he experiences a change in his state of mind, which is expressed by dropping his frame rate. So this is one, if you watched the Spider-Verse movie, the first one, with Miles Morales, one of the tricks that they use for Miles over the course of that movie is that when he first starts trying to use his spider powers, he's animated at a much lower frame rate than other characters, so his movement just looks rougher, right? And as he comes more and more into his own, the frame rate of his motion and movement increases and becomes better until after the iconic scene where he's like rising out of the city when he like jumps off the building, takes the leap of faith, and fully wears the spider suit. He's animated on ones, right? Like, because his motion is totally smooth, because that's when he comes into himself, right? That's when he becomes Spider-Man fully. And that's such a cool part of the storytelling of that. But they're doing something a little bit similar here, where they're deliberately animating Stark at a really low frame rate to make his motions awkward, especially compared to Fern, who's animated much more smoothly and much more subtly, right? And you can see that they're doing the classic offset frame rate thing here. So how many frames are we? It's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 6, 7, 8. Wow! Oh, they pull a real hold on that one. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, so they're animating him like between 4, 6, 7, 8 frames a second. Like, really, and it's not even consistent, the frame rate that they're animating him at. They're really cranking down the awkwardness, right? Like, they're making his motion stiff, not just by having him giving acting performance that's stiff. You can see it in his body language also, like, all of a sudden how he's walking much more stiffly as he becomes conscious that he's attracted to her, right? Like, that he finds her beautiful and he doesn't know what to do with himself, because of course he doesn't. He was raised in a forest by a grumpy old dwarf after his dad tried to kill him. Right? Of course he doesn't know. Of course, I don't blame Stark for not knowing. I just want to bash him over the back of the head and say, like, fucking compliment her, you moron. She looks nice. Just tell her that. Right? And the other thing the animators are doing also, right? Like, to show that Stark is he's struggling. He's doing the thing, like, when you become conscious that you're attracted to someone, or that, like, you're where all of a sudden you become unbearably conscious of everything your body is doing. Like, where the fuck do I put my hands? Am I standing weird? Am I walking weird? Am I looking casual? What's going on? Like, it's that experience. So they're giving Stark this much more tensed out body language, arms out to the side. Like, you can see he's wobbling in his walk all of a sudden, right? Like, whereas Fern, who is equally nervous, I would venture to guess, but who's holding it together a lot better, her motion is much more downplayed, right? Like, so it's not just that he's animated at a different frame rate, it's also that Fern, her physical acting, is much more subtle movements. And because he's doing these big swings, these big motions, that makes his lower frame rate even more noticeable. God, I love when animators do shit like this, where they deliberately use the properties of the medium, right? Because this is some shit you can do in animation. You cannot do this in film. You cannot do this in film, you can't do this in comics, you can't do this in literature. This trick of using the frame rate, the properties of animation, that it is so tied to the aesthetics of frame rate, using that to display a character's interiority is... I love that shit, because that's using the medium. That's using what only this medium can do. And you can just see it, right? Like that Fern, she has this little subtle, like, bobbing with her hair, mostly. There's little tiny subtle movements in the clothing that she's wearing, right? That's reacting to her walking. Whereas Stark, he's stiff as a board, right? He doesn't have that subtle cloth movement because he doesn't have the frame rate to have it. His hair doesn't even really wiggle with these big motions that he's doing because he doesn't have the frame rate to show it off, right? Like, so he's stiff both literally and figuratively and emotionally, and in terms of his acting and in terms of his animation, where Fern is so much smoother. God, that's cool. That must have been a fun challenge for the animators to animate it, too. To figure out how to make that read? Oh, that's clever. That is really, really cool. I like that. Anyway, 3, 2, 1, go. That's a cute bag. Yeah, you do. No. Stark! No! No! It's not like there's anything else to... What? How about you ask about her? One question, Stark, about her. How are you feeling? How are you doing? What do you want to do? Tell me about your dreams. Anything! Oh, hang on. 3, 2, 1, pause. No, it's another one of those. It's the little things, man. It's the little things. I just want to see that motion again. Yeah, like, because, okay, so the chain they've got here, right? It's not a contiguous chain. They're stylizing it. So you have these little ovals and circles that sort of form the links of the chain. And see the way that as the hand comes down, you can see that the chain is being pulled. And that's actually, when you're dealing with a chain that is this stylized, that can actually be deceptively difficult to manage the sense of like a pull, of like a flowing motion with it. Because if you just move this link in the chain to the same position that that link in the chain is in, well, then it doesn't look like it's actually moving. Then it looks static. So the animators are doing a great job, and it's little tiny subtle motions as the chain comes down. Right, these little, and again, with the fucking, this you could handle with motion tweening if you wanted to. No one would notice except freaks like me, and who cares? But if you go in, you can see frame by frame, baby. Every frame a painting, every frame hand animated different. You can see the oscillations in the lines. And it's such a well observed little, because it's the little subtle move that she's like holding with her thumb on top of the pendant, and then as the hand lands in the velvet or whatever it's on, pulling the fingers back and slowly sliding it down. And then that little place, that's a really complex. Hands are motherfuckers. We all know this. If you draw, if you're not, you know, hands are motherfuckers. Hands are bastards. We hate hands, except if you're a specific kind of pervert, then you love hands. I am that specific kind of pervert. But hands are a bastard. Like, the structure of them, the way that they're put together, the way that all of the fucking little tendons and bones and shit, the way that they work, the way that, like, the fat on a hand squishes when you fold it over. Tough shit to work with. Very annoying. So, like, the observation here on the mechanics of a hand slowly putting a pendant down, on top of which, again, this is the sort of thing, something like this pendant, which is like this hard geometric object, right? Like, it's this thing, it doesn't change shape, right? So it has to be, if you're rotating it, you have to rotate it consistently, right? Like, you have to make the edges and like the filigree and all the shit on it has to be consistent. The lighting, the little highlight has to be consistent with the rotation as well. It's so much work. It's so much extra fiddling to do that. Where, again, a lesser production would probably, and it's not even a lesser production, just a production that doesn't have as much budget and time, would probably be like, okay, we could probably do the pendant as a 3D object, and then like you can animate the hand. And, like, they might have done some rotoscoping or, like, some heavy reference or whatever to get it, but just, it's the little things, man. It's such a little unimportant shot, but there was an animator who cared. Oh, 3, 2, 1, go. He's so dumb. Ugh. Oh, it's the same pendant. Oh, no. He doesn't know. He doesn't know. The poor boy. Ooh, good catch. Just tell her that they look nice. They might be hard to walk, but they look nice on you. Don't walk away! No! Say anything! She put in all this effort! It's all you have to do is observe that effort has been made and then recognize it. It's not even. I'm aromantic and I know this. Good. Bring up... speak. Good. Be honest. There we go. There we go. Whew. Also, why do you never take your helmet off? Isn't that the truth? Don't bring out your magic staff like you're trying to... Jesus. They do look nice on her. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Pause. What a lovely little sequence. Like, it's the end, right? Like, it's the thing that makes the ice break, right? Like, the thing that gives Fern some of the joy that she's looking for is his admission that, like, I had frieren pick these spots because he wanted it to be special for her, right? And that's sort of the thing of like, okay, cool. Now Stark's feelings become more understood because now Fern understands why it doesn't feel like him, right? And like that's again from Stark again, a kid who doesn't know how to do any of this. That's not a bad instinct, right? That is making an earnest effort to try and make something good for someone else, right? Good boy. I swear to God, it is a thing. Like, there are romance stories and stuff in anime and manga where there is this sort of permanent idiot ball, right? Like, that sort of gets tossed around. Like, I think the most frustrating example I ever read was Ranma Half, because Ranma Half is this infinite, constant, repeated gag of Ranma and Akane. Oh, are we sort of feeling something for each other? And then Hakusai like jumps in and says something perverted, or someone throws water, like some shit happens, and then we're right back to square one, right? Because it's a gag manga, it's a comedy, right? Like, so part of the comedy is the will they, won't they, and the answer is they will, but not until the absolute very end of it, at which point it's going to happen quite like instantly. And that can be frustrating to engage with when a story thinks that it's much, much funnier that these two dipshits who are clearly head over heels for each other are never going to talk about their feelings. They're never going to progress emotionally. That can be very frustrating to engage with. So I'm very glad at the end of the date sequence here that it's not just Stark, like, unwittingly shoving his entire boot in his mouth like 450 times and then nothing changes. I do like that they have that little moment of actual progression where they become closer to understanding one another's feelings. I do wish he'd said something about the outfit, though. Like, she deserves. Fern put in a bunch of effort too, right? Like, at the end of it, Fern recognizes Stark's effort, and that's good. If Stark could just have said, like, one thing, you look nice today. Like, one thing. That would also have been good. Ooh. But, you know, baby steps. He'll figure it out. He'll figure it out. He damn well better figure it out. I love that boy. Brackets. Frustration. Anyway. 3, 2, 1, go. So, we're reaching the northern lands. Presumably, the story is nowhere close to done, but it does feel like we're getting closer. Oh, hey, dinosaurs! Ooh. Cool. Yeah. Oh, you got cursed. Okay, we've entered the high level area. Ooh, beautiful spinning wheel. Well, yeah, but, you know. Yeah, Stark. It's an understandable question for him, right? Given his relationship to home and family, i.e., what happened with his dad and his village. It does make me wonder how people are living there when there's like when you're constantly surrounded by level 80 monsters or whatever. Like there must be infrastructure in place. I guess the knights. I liked that little flourish. Hang on. Ooh, hello. 3, 2, 1, pause. That was a nice little flourish. As the horse comes. Yeah, lovely little animation smear here. God only knows how that axe is attached to his back, but I quite like the way that he unsheathed it, or grabbed it. Little spin. You can see his center of gravity, like he is lowering his center of gravity a little bit to get into a combat stance. That's quite good. And always, horse animation is always impressive. There's a reason why you boot up most seasonal isekai, right? If there's like horses drawing carriages at some point, or like a horse needs to, oftentimes 3D, right? Oftentimes they'll just put a 3D horse in there and try and composite it reasonably well, because horse animation is difficult. Horses are complex creatures to render, especially if you're also going to render the horse wearing like a full like bridle and harness arrangement like that. That's actually really quite impressive. Yeah, like because they're animating like the two shattered timbers there, right? Like which are sort of, you can see how they are flying around. They're flopping in the harness where they're attached. That's pretty good. Horse galloping, by the way. Horse galloping is intimately connected to the history of animation, interestingly enough, because some of the first, this is sort of depends on how you define it, but like very early in the days of photography, one of the first sequences of images that were ever taken of a running horse, right, was a photographer whose name I forget, unfortunately, but who managed to set up a bunch of cameras to take pictures of horses as they run at a full gallop, right? Which was the first time it was ever documented, like specifically that horses, like at some point during a horse's gallop, all 4 of its feet do leave the ground, which like was the debate for a long time whether a horse always has 1 foot on the ground or whether they ever come into flight. Edward Maybridge, yeah. And the photography technology that he invented, and the style of photographing a horse like in sequence like that, in a sequence that if you put it together, you actually get like an animation of a horse running. That's a part of like the development of the idea of like, oh, you could just put a bunch of frames of pictures together like that, along with things like the zoetrope, the things like flip books and things like that. Like animation has a long, complicated history, like puppetry and things like that. But in terms of photography, that was a kind of a watershed moment for figuring out how to do it's also a watershed moment in development of like moving pictures and things like that. But there is a connection between running horses and the history of animation, because that sequence of photos was essentially a piece of stop motion animation, which is curious. Anyway, I just wanted to see Stark do his little flourish with his axe. Let's see them kill a demon. 3, 2, 1, go. Not a demon with a lot of personality, then. Ooh. Yeah! I love it when Stark gets to do shit. Especially after season 1. Can you cast a buff spell on him, maybe, or something? Ooh. Ah, the butterflies. Wait, hang on. Okay, we're gonna have to go back and look at that. You gotta be precise with that, frieren. Three, 2, 1, pause. Okay. God, there's a lot there to look at. First of all, like, the demon, when it's getting into battle stance, right? Lovely smears. But also just the complexity of that motion it's about to do. Right, like, it swings the sword down here, and then it progresses into, like, this other little flourish. Around, grabs it, and then, like, that foreshortening into camera is, like... That's very good. And then we get classic hand-animated ground. We're gonna get some flashing lights here, probably. And here's a thing about, like, especially when you're doing fast combat animation and things like that, individual frames don't necessarily need to be good drawings. By which I mean, look at Stark's proportions here. Look at like his arms, the size of his head relative to his legs and things like that. It's a wonky drawing, right? Like it's like it's not the kind of thing that would make for a realistic illustration, but it doesn't have to be, because its purpose isn't to be a illustration that the action stops on. The purpose of it is to be a bridge from here to here, right? From key pose to key pose. And it's only going to be on screen for like literally one frame, so it doesn't matter, right? So there's, when you do frame by frame your way through animation, you can always find frames, you can always find drawings that look a bit awkward, that look a bit weird, that look a bit off, but that's not necessarily a sign of like, oh, the animator didn't care or the animator isn't skillful. That's the animator knowing where to put their effort, right? Like here, the most important thing about this frame here is that it communicates the transition from here into keyframe here, right? Yonk! Again, I know I bag on isekai a lot. It's not really because I have anything against the genre. It's just because isekai is the slop genre du jour, right? Isekai is the thing that anime studios are pumping out 14 of every single season at fairly low quality. But one thing about, like, and also because isekai tend to be fantasy genre, which compares well to frieren. But one thing about it is when there's a sword fight or a fight between like two melee combat users in sort of these low budget, low tier isekais, what you often get is characters who don't really use their weapons particularly interestingly, right? Like they'll swing their weapons at each other, they'll smack each other with their weapons, but you won't get something like this, right? Like the demon dragging their sword up around here, Stark parries, gets out of the way, carry the momentum, turn around, grab with the other hand, bring it down in an overhead swing, Dark Souls roll. Like, you won't get this much choreography, right? Where the characters are dancing in and out of each other, taking advantage of openings and things. Obviously, it's not realistic combat, right? Like, it's... because, like, if it was realistic combat, that demon would be dead here, because he's showing his back to Stark for quite a long time. But it's choreography, right? Like, you wouldn't get this level of choreography, like, or these camera moves, right? Where you have the camera close in on Stark's back. We're using a Dutch angle to sort of, to like get that action and like the unsettlement of the situation across. Lovely smear frames. And like this dance of the two bodies composed against each other in frame, right? Because this is a good frame that again tells you something about the fight that we're having. The fight we're having here is one where that demon is not easy, right? Like, that's not an easy enemy to deal with. That enemy is smart. They know how to fight. The demon is going to respond to frieren correctly by going, oh, that's a mage on the back line, I'm going to go for it, right? Because that mage is clearly a threat. Like, the demon is smart. The demon is clever. It's not an easy fight. It's physically overwhelming. So we frame Stark against it as literally being a small guy confronting an overwhelming force here. And it's all part of doing the storytelling of the fight, right? Of communicating not just the literal action, but also the emotional action of it. And I do like the development of Stark here, that he fucking jumps on that demon's back and tries to choke it to death, shouting like, maybe you're tough, but I'm tough too. That's a different boy than the boy who was so scared to like risk anything to go for the dragon. Probably doesn't hurt that he was protecting a girl he likes. Yeah, like the way they carry the momentum of, like, there's the parry, he carries that momentum backwards, and then counterattack and gadoosh. Yeah, and like even more where they carry from here when he does that push back, right? Like they carry from that, cut on that move into having the two of them in the foreground with the mages framed against them. And we get this dance of the two struggling in the foreground. And again, lovely differential frame timing, right? The demon moves, Stark moves, the demon moves, Stark moves. Sometimes they move simultaneously. And I'm going to risk a little bit of full motion here. Right? That looks really good. It's just a well-choreographed fight. Like, it just feels good as a struggle to watch. Rather than just, we are throwing big attacks at each other while shouting out attack names, right? Okay, so Fern puts up a defense spell here. It breaks, and it's hexagons. Okay, cool. It's hexagons. Then she goes smashed into the tree. We're gonna have a look at this shot too. God damn. Again, the kind of thing, a shot like this, you could do 3D to make a shot like this work, right? You could also just have a flat background and zoom into it. You could just kind of zoom into it, motion to it. I do love that the animator is just like, no, we're gonna fucking do a hand-drawn 3D shot for this shit. Because fuck you, that's why. Because we're the frieren animators and we do that shit for fun. But then, like, another defensive spell. Boom, it shatters. Oh, hey! That's a different look. Almost as though it's implying that Fern cast the spell with a different mentality, because magic is all about things you envision, right? The butterflies, of course, are her symbol, right? Like, those are... Interesting that it's Stark being in danger that prompts that change in her magic. I do like when they animate, like when Stark does his big attacks, I do like that they do this. They did the same thing in his fight with the female demon in season 1 when he kills her. Just snap to this. Gadunk. And then just animate a bunch of fucking fragments flying around in the air. Very good. Beautiful. Anyway, 3, 2, 1, go. I like that Frieren doesn't have to finish the thought, right? But I do like that Frieren doesn't have to finish Himmel's thought, right? Like, Himmel has to explain it fully to Frieren, but Frieren just has to say the first part, and then Stark, like, gets it. I like that. Good characterization for Frieren. Like, we see the ways that Himmel still exists in the world through Frieren, which is one of the big thematic things, right? Like, this thing of, that's part of why she goes on the journey, but also that's part of the message of the show, right? That you leave things behind. Even when you're gone, you leave yourself behind in the memories of other people and the lives you have affected. And you can you can also see it in the ending here. Let me just pause. We don't need the countdown because we're in the end credits. But it's also like, that's also the very literal storytelling, right? That Himmel is writing down his story. It becomes a flame that Frieren carries into the darkness, right? It's Himmel isn't really gone, right? And the journey for Frieren is an attempt to connect with him, right? It is carrying on his memory and his legacy, but also carrying his flame forward, right? He has changed her, and so she changes the world right alongside his memory and passes him on, right? Like, when she gives that little half of Himmel's speech to Stark, she passes on something of Himmel to him as well, which is, like, beautiful, frankly. That's the human part of the story, right? And that's what makes Frieren interesting to me, right? Because all the fucking Sakuga animation, yeah, no, I would cream my pants over that any day, obviously. But that's the shit that makes the show interesting, right? Because, like, you can have all the Sakuga in the world, but if it's not in service of a story that has something interesting or meaningful on its mind, or something to say about its characters, then I lose interest. Jujutsu Kaisen. Sorry, what? I didn't say anything. This is Solo Leveling is the better example. On I actually, yeah, like Jujutsu Kaisen. That was a slightly undeserved shot. Jujutsu Kaisen does have things on its mind. Solo Leveling, on the other hand, Solo Leveling is let's just call it fun, smooth-brained entertainment. Let's call it that. Because Solo Leveling has the Sakuga juice, right? But I don't give a shit about. I've tried to follow it. Like, there's something interesting in there possibly, but the show just doesn't seem curious about its own premise very much in that sense. Whereas Frieren is like, yeah, Sakuga bullshit, but the show doesn't exist because of Sakuga, right? The show doesn't exist because it wants to get to another scene of Frieren being the best demon slayer in the world, or shit going off. Like, the Sakuga exists secondarily to that. Like, it exists as a consequence of Frieren being the best demon slayer in the world, right? It exists as a consequence of the premise, but the premise was not concocted to justify having the Sakuga, right? And that's the difference with something like Solo Leveling, where the premise is concocted specifically so that, and again, also very much with a bunch of other isekai, the premise is concocted so that it allows a protagonist to use their broken cheat skill to do all of the coolest shit ever, right? And I'm not knocking that as a power fantasy. It's fun. I watch like, listen, I knock on isekai a lot because it is my trash. I love my trash. I love my garbage. I eat that slop up like a hog. But it is slop, right? It is the whole point of it is, like, here's a premise that allows us to do some of the coolest shit ever and have our protagonist just be the coolest cool guy who does the cool shit ever. And I'm a mark for that. But the shit that interests me, the shit that I'm willing to sit here and talk for hours about, it's this. It's when there's something else going on, right? Frieren would be a good show without the Sakuga. Frieren would be a good show if it, like, bold statement, but Frieren would be a good show if it looked like that fucking Berserk adaptation that everyone memes on. Because the story is still there. right? And like it wouldn't be as popular. It's like I don't think I could sit here yelling about animation details in the same way, but the story would still be good, right? Which is the same thing of One Punch Man, right? One Punch Man, the anime, became popular because... Was it Madhouse or Mappa? One of the two. Because the animation studio just went absolutely fucking turbo ham on the anime, right? And the manga gained a wide audience because Yusuke Murata just deployed his entire astonishing skill set to turning the manga into one of the most visually beautiful shonen that exists, right? Like just one of the most beautifully drawn shonen battle manga in the world is One Punch Man. But it was good before those things. It was already good when One was drawing it. And One, especially when he was doing the early chapters of One Punch Man, but always, is kind of a shit artist. I say, well, no, he's not. He's a great artist. He's actually an astonishingly good artist, but he's not a technically very competent artist, especially back then. His paneling, his line work, his character design, everything was low tier, not very good technically, but there was a story there. Right? There was a story. It had something on its mind. Yes, funny story about like Anpom Man parody, one-punching his way through, but the core of it is Saitama's disaffection, right? Like that search for meaning, where Saitama feels so alienated by his own brilliance and his own condition that he can't find joy in anything. That's the thing that hooks people in. That's the thing that makes it interesting and good, is like existential ennui in a story full of shonen battle and manga tropes, right? And once he moved on to Mob Psycho, right? Mob Psycho is in many ways kind of the same story as One Punch Man, just through a different lens. Again, we have this ultra powerful character who has the power to do literally almost anything, who is at the top of the shonen power level rankings, right? But all of that power does not provide them meaning, right? It does not provide, it doesn't fill their heart. It's more of a burden on them, honestly, right? And it's about that search for meaning rather than just strength, which is where One is so good at inverting the usual quest line of like a stereotypical battle shonen, right? Because Mob Psycho is not about being the strongest. It's not about being the strongest. It being the strongest is in fact entirely irrelevant to joy and happiness and the themes of Mob Psycho. Mob Psycho is about finding a way to be happy with yourself, right? It's, yeah, like, and it's still good regardless of whether it has some of the most beautiful anime adaptations in the world. Read Mob Psycho. Like, read the original Mob Psycho 100 manga by One. Read the original One Punch manga by One. And even though the art kind of looks like dog shit in many places, you'll still get sucked in. Anyway, how do we get onto this topic? I'm not 100% sure what highways or byways we wandered by here. But that was episode 4 with a cute little date and Stark being a moron. And we can move on to episode 5 now, I think.